everybody. It's me, Beth Maitland from Drama Queen Bee Quilts, and I'm here today to talk a little bit about ruler work. And what I'm creating on a baby quilt that I'm working on is a piano key border. And the way that I've specialized it is that I'm doing an every other piano key filler, which we'll get to in a moment. But first of all, I'm no expert at ruler work, but I do like to learn and I do like to demonstrate. And so here what you see me doing is I have marked my entire border, measured it off, and marked it at 2-inch increments. So I've taken my border fabric and I've put a little marker, or like a registration mark dot, every 2 inches all the way around the outside of the border. And as you can see, I'm using my straight edge ruler to just sew straight lines from point to point in my measurements. And across the bottom, where I'm going off onto the batting, I don't need to use the ruler as a straight edge. But then I do my straight line through the piano key, and then when I get up to stitch in the ditch to go over to the next registration marks, I do use my ruler to steady my needle so that it makes a straight line stitching in the ditch. And I use the ruler to sort of gently sort of support the needle. And then, like I said, when I'm down in the batting area, I'm not worried about any of that showing because that will all be cut off when I straighten up the edges, and it will be bound in with my binding, so those little wavy stitches won't show. Now here in the corner, what I decided to do was do diagonal stitching like a starburst outward and into that corner, so that every single one of these rays, if you will, uses the common point of this corner of the border as its starting and stopping point, and then it fans out toward the outer edge corner. And the way that I calculated doing that, here these last two little wedges are not exactly 2 inches apart because I wanted, oh sorry, I bumped the camera, I wanted there to be a little bit of like a sort of an arrow shape to the filler that I'm using every other piano key. I wanted there to be sort of an arrow shape into each ray of the corners to kind of add a little extra detail. So it's 2-inch marked all the way along the sides except in the corner, and you'll see when we get to the filler section why that changes things for me just a little bit. So as you see, we go into the corner and use that same point as our finish spot on every single one of these rays, and then in a moment when we get them all sewn out as straight edges, we'll go back and use the filler every other panel, or in this case wedge, if we're going to do this in the corner, and that will offset our piano keys, and it will make it kind of pop. The ones without the quilting will puff up a little bit after we launder, and the ones with the quilting, it's just a back and forth stitch, just sort of straight lines back and forth, and they get smaller and smaller as the wedge gets more and more narrow, obviously. But it's very easy for me to go back and forth, and push down the batting and push down the fabric so that when it's laundered and there's a little bit of shrinkage, it'll puff up on the areas that are not quilted. Okay, so as I go ahead and fill the rest of these in, every other panel, I just want to talk a little bit more about ruler work. When I first started with my mid-arm quilting machine, I was absolutely mystified by the equipment available and how I was supposed to learn this. There's not really, besides going to a class, all of which were far away from my little country home, there were some YouTube videos that were useful and helpful, but not all of them spoke to my specific equipment. So let me just assure you that there are just a couple of things that you need to remember. First of all, every sewing machine that you have, every quilting machine, and even your domestic machine, will come with a ruler extension table that you can purchase separately as sort of an add-on. And this ruler table is really, really important for mid-arm and long-arm sewing machines because it expands the size of what's underneath the fabric to accommodate having to push down a little bit with the ruler on the fabric and be supported from underneath and not sort of drop off the edge as you work your way down the ruler. If you don't have any surface beneath it, you're going to end up with lots of trouble with needles breaking, with timing on your machine going wrong, and there's a big mess. So be sure that you have the proper equipment when you begin your ruler work journey. Make sure you have a stabilizer, expander base, or a ruler table, they're called, underneath your equipment that you purchase for your specific sewing machine and the size of your sewing machine. That's important. In the long arm community, if you have an automatic thread cutter on your machine, you'll have to talk about that. You'll have to mention that when you're ordering or purchasing your ruler table. It has to be made with a space available for cutting the threads in the plexiglass table that you purchase. For domestic quilters, the happy news is that they are also starting to offer all kinds of extra extension tables for your regular home sewing machine too. Not only just for quilting, but also for you to be able to do ruler work. And if you guys like craftsy.com, there's a wonderful new ruler work for your domestic sewing machine video, a tutorial class that you can take a look at and see if you're interested in taking that. I highly recommend it. Anyway, so most of my education in ruler work was doing YouTube videos and trying to sew along to a lot of the people that are favorites of mine, that are sort of my quilting superstars, celebrity guru type people that I learn a great deal from just by watching their work, watching their videos, buying their books, taking their classes. And so there's all kinds of equipment available to you. The rulers can be as simple as straight edges and as complicated as the shapes of paisleys and feathers and swirls and waves. To give you some kind of idea, there's lots of opportunity for you out in the ruler world. But this is our finished, simple piano keyboarder. As you can see, there's filler every other row and a little detail in the corner. Thank you for joining me for Basic Ruler Work Introduction. This is Beth Maitland with Drama Queen Bee Quilts.